Forge, before, page 146. When I was 10 years old, a tailor came to the kitchen of the Bellingham house. I stood on a chair so he could measure me for a velvet waistcoat and breeches with pewter buttons at the knees. A new suit of clothes arrived the day that James Bellingham turned 25 years old. His father, Judge Bellingham, gave young Master James splendid gifts on the occasion of that birthday: a house of his own, a share of this family's ships, and enough money to marry a lady and me. My father packed my new clothes in one of the chests that were loaded on the wagon. After much protest, I sat next to it for the short ride to the new house. As soon as Master Bellingham was distracted, I ran down Newbury Street back to the world that I knew, and I begged my father to let me stay with him. Father talked calmly, explaining that we ought to be grateful that our masters lived so close to each other, that we would be able to pass most Sunday afternoons together. I hollered and called him a bad name, and he paddled my backside. I ran away, a week later, this time, to the ship preparing to sail for France. I was unafraid of climbing to the top of the highest mast, so they took me on. The night before we left, the captain set a small gold ring in my right ear, the mark of a real sailor. The judge's hired men boarded the ship at dawn. They trust me like a pig and carried me back to Newbury Street. Judge Bellingham ordered my father to beat me with a leather strap on my naked back, and he and Master James watched. He made sure that my father did a proper job. I tried not to cry, for I knew it would upset my father more. But I couldn't help myself. I turned my head and looked at him once, just as a strap cracked in the air. The end of it sliced a line along my jawbone, and blood fell. The judge said, "That's enough for now, Caesar." My father dropped to his knees and wept. The velvet waistcoat was green. Forge, chapter 30. "What's wrong?" Eben whispered. "You look like you're going to puke." "I'm fine," I lied. "Tch," hissed the rest of the company. Bellingham leaned forward, listening to the congressman. His boots were caked with mud, and his coat was shabby compared to the coats of his companions. His gloves were split, and his neckcloth stained. Clearly, he was in reduced circumstances. He said that something that made the man on the stallion laugh. Was Bellingham a congressman, then? A member of the committee? Despite the shoddy gloves and the clothes, and he was still being treated as a gentleman? The two men turned and surveyed our company whilst the brigadier general spoke. For a moment, Bellingham stared straight at me. I had thought that if I ever saw him, I'd be afraid. I'd cower, run, or hide. Instead, I met his gaze. The north wind howled. Horses stamped their feet. He owes me. When he enlisted me, Bellingham had promised two things: that I would be freed at the end of my service to the army, and that he'd give me a signing bonus of £20 upon that freedom. I'd earned my freedom with no worries on that score, but the signed paper that proved my freedom and the £20 would be useful. Bellingham patted his horse's neck and then looked at me again. His head tilted to one side, and he spoke once more to his companion, dismounted, and walked towards me. "Curzon," he asked, "is that truly you?" "Is there a problem, sir?" John Burns followed tight on Bellingham's heels. "Has this soldier offended you?" "Not at all, Sergeant." Bellingham stopped directly in front of me. "It is you." Deep lines were carved into his cheeks, and above his red-rimmed eyes, skin hung from his chin. Indeed, he appeared shrunken, a smaller man than he once was. My former master had aged 10 years and 18 months. The one once proud and powerful now appeared pitiful, weak, though I stood in rags upon frozen feet, and I felt much more of a man than he. "Good day, sir," I said firmly. "Good day?" He grabbed my shoulders and grinned. "I should say it's a good day. I thought you were dead." "Not dead at all, sir," I said. "This is extraordinary, extraordinary." Bellingham released me and stepped back. "You're a head taller since I last saw you." The brigadier general and the congressman on the brown stallions both rode over to us. "Is something amiss?" asked the brigadier general. "I asked the very same thing, sir," Burns said quickly. No. Bellingham shook his head, still grinning. "This lad used to serve me. He was captured at Fort Washington and sent to the Bridewell prison. I thought he'd died there. He's a sight for sore eyes, I can tell you that." All eyes, sore or not, were firmly fixed on me, staring as if I suddenly sprouted a second head. Bellingham chuckled. "I have so many questions, I scarce know where to begin." "James," the congressman called, "a word, please." Of course, Bellingham followed the man on his horse, far enough away that we could not hear their words. Eben gave me a shove. You worked for him? You never said that. I didn't work there long, I said. Quiet, Burns ordered. The congressman rejoined the other fellows on horseback, and Bellingham walked back towards us and pointed at John Burns. Are you his sergeant? Yes, sir, Burns said. The visiting committee of Congress requires that Curzon attends us tomorrow at Moore Hall. Has he offended you, sir? Is he charged with a crime? No, Bellingham laughed. Nothing like that. The congressmen want to question reliable soldiers about the circumstances here. I have vouched for Curzon's honesty. They want to hear his experiences. Horror crossed Burns' face. What time shall I bring him to you? He asked. There's no need to escort him, Sergeant. Bellingham shivered and pulled his collar tighter. Curzon's quite good at following directions. You know where Washington's headquarters are. The stone house by the creek, sir, I said, fighting a smile and the desire to dance with glee. I could collect my debt and make sure that John Burns was called to account for his treatment of me. Right. Take that road west a bit. Moore Hall is large house. There's no mistaking it. I shall expect you at midday. I'll be there, sir, I said. Bellingham nodded, rubbed his gloved hands together briskly, and glanced at my feet. I have one request, Sergeant. Anything, sir. Make sure that Curzon has something on his feet. I held my tongue until the gentleman had ridden off, and we were dismissed to return to warmth of our huts. Say there, John, I said to Burns, can I wear your boots? This changes nothing, he said, narrowing his eyes like he was sighting down a gun barrel. Mind how you go.